Hello, I'm Lana Newman Cruzy, and welcome to We've Got Books. And boy, do we ever! We are three authors: Anne Green, myself, Lana Newman Cruzy, and James Yarbrough. We're coming to you from the big sky country of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, where winters are mild but summers are scorching.
Hello, I'm Anne Green.
And I'm James Yarbrough.
We'll be your hosts for We've Got Books, and we're excited to connect with you. We are authors who delight in telling you about our books, as well as interviewing other Christian fiction writers about their books. Our goal is to introduce you to some great Christian fiction and to have fun doing so. We'll focus on getting to know authors and discover why we write books. We'll discuss fiction of different genres: suspense, romance, historical, mystery, women's fiction, and humor. Have you ever read a sensational book and wondered about the author? How the storyline was chosen, the plot envisioned, the characters created? We'll sit around the table chatting to get to know each author and how his book was created. So sit back and enjoy this ride into the literary world. Today, Jim Yarbrough is interviewing Colleen Snyder. Take it away, Jim.
Thank you, Lana. Colleen, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. This will be exciting. We're certainly glad to meet you, and I'm sure our listeners will be just thrilled to meet you as well. So maybe we can start by you were giving us a little background about yourself and how long you've been writing, for instance.
I began storytelling before I could read or write. My mom would sit with the book Winnie the Pooh, and she would have a teddy bear on her lap, and she would read the story to us. So I began storytelling. I'd put my little stuffed animals all around in a circle, and I'd tell them stories, and it just seemed that that was a natural way to follow my mom's lead. I wrote stories through grade school and into junior high. We had a visiting author come, and I was so excited because she said I should think of a career in writing. Just my dream. I wrote fanfic in high school before it was ever a thing, and then started seriously writing in college. I wrote essays and short stories, and then I moved to books.
That's a great story. Well, could you tell us a little bit about your published books that you did post-childhood?
Okay, my first books were published in 1990 and 1992, back in the dark ages of publishing. I wrote two allegorical Christian fantasies about my children coming to faith in Christ. The publishing arm of the Southern Baptist Convention liked it, and they bought it and released them. I took a break after that for kids and life, and then I published again in 2020. Yes, in the pandemic, when most of us were publishing. I put out about 3 books a year since then with Winged Publications, which is owned by Cynthia Hickey, and she is a marvelous publisher.
We agree. I think Anne, Lana, and I certainly agree with you there. We highly respect Cynthia and Wheaton Publications. If you're doing 3 books a year, that's a pretty good pace, so congratulations. Could you tell us about the sort of genres that you write in?
I write contemporary Christian mystery / suspense because I've never learned what the difference between mystery and suspense really is. My first series is a woman's contemporary, the Collin Walker Series. Verdict at the River's Edge is the first book. Collin Walker is a 26-year-old social worker in the inner city, and she wants to teach her 14-year-old ward Robbie that there is more to life than the streets, that you can be strong and still love, can win without cheating, and conceded life without all the bells and whistles. She takes him to a challenge sports camp up in the hills of West Virginia so that she can teach him these things. But the Lord challenges Collin with her 2 deepest fears, rushing rivers and the love of a good man. Can she still walk the talk when her life spirals out of her tightly held control? Can she lean into the Lord to protect her? And will she? There are 7 books in that series. My second series follows 4 young men and their desire to walk like Jesus in all of life. It's also contemporary. The series is called The Knights of the Octagon. Again, it's contemporary. It's Octagon because no one had a round table, and Knights of the Oval sounded weird, so they called themselves the Knights of the Octagon. Benefactor is the first in this series. 4 friends, once the brightest and best of their high school. 3 of them had to drop out due to family issues. Now, in their early 20s, they're determined to have one final fling before the youngest knight goes to college, whether he wants to or not. They will send him to college. They choose whitewater rafting, but the river winds and the 4 are tossed overboard. Washing up on shore, they are left with 3 pocket knives, a compass, each other, and their faith to see them through. How will they fare when help arrives from unexpected places? When they are drafted into a $1 million treasure hunt? One with a murderer in hiding? Can their commitment to live as what would Jesus do be enough to save them? There are 5 books in that series, and I'm working on the 6th, which should be due out next month if the planets align right.
Well, both those series sound really exciting, so congratulations. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing those. The latest book in that series. Can you tell us a little more about yourself, where you live, and how you got to be writing at this point?
I am living in the Central Valley of California with my mom, who's 93, and my younger sister, who I won't disclose her age, but she's 2 years younger than I am, and I'm 70. We live on a 5-acre ranchette with my mom's dog and 2 ponies. I have 2 children, Katie and Bear. They both live in Ohio. Bear has my 2 granddaughters. They're 11 and 9. He spent time on the mission field in Mexico. I have to brag on them. He spent time on the mission field in Mexico and in Cambodia, but his heart is in Mexico. My daughter Katie has been gifted with singleness, and she's been a missionary to both Haiti and Cambodia, but her heart is in Cambodia.
Well, that's a blessing that both your children are missionaries. They must have some stories. I don't know if either one of them are writers, but certainly they would have some stories to write as well if they are.
They have stories to tell. They haven't tried writing them, but they do have stories to tell. Mostly how the Lord has worked in their lives and the lives of the people that they see in the other countries. So I'm very proud of them.
Well, tell us about you have siblings, I understand, and how is life there in the Central Valley of California?
I have 3 siblings. Again, I live with my younger sister. I have nieces and nephews and great nieces and great nephews, and life in Central Valley, California is fairly quiet. Like I said, we live on a ranchette, so we're out away from the city and all of the activity that goes on. We're kind of isolated out here, and it's a great way to write because especially during the pandemic, we weren't going anywhere. So it was fantastic to write, and just on a day-to-day basis, it's very quiet out here, and I love it.
You know, it does sound ideal. I'm envious, Colleen. When I get out to write, I go many times to a kind of a busy cafe, and it's a different kind of background. You certainly don't have a lot of quiet in a place like that. So I'm sure that's a great place to write. I understand that you have a very interesting background in various careers you've had. Could you share that with us?
My very first career was right out of high school, and I dropped coupons in boxes at the Kellogg's cereal factory, and I apologize to anybody whose box I missed. They would come along at a very good clip, and I was either dropping coupons or toy reflectors, and if I missed your box, I apologize. From there, I became a hospital pharmacy technician. I joined the United States Air Force and became a missile systems analyst. I was an adult literacy teacher, a janitor, a daycare assistant, a kindergarten teacher, a college teacher. I worked as a crisis pregnancy counselor, a food service line worker. I've done accounting, secretarial. My last job, I was assistant to the president of a car parts distribution warehouse. Whatever the Lord required of me at the time, that's what I've done.
Colleen, it sounds to me that you were destined to write with all these different backgrounds you've had. I mean, what an amazing number and variety of stories you must have gleaned from your work experience.
The Lord has definitely led me in a whole lot of different areas so that I can draw on them for my writing.
That's fun. That's really fun. Anything else you'd like to share along those lines?
Kind of growing up, I moved every year, so I changed schools every year until I hit junior high school. I've lived in 8 states. I have jumped out of a perfectly good airplane twice with a round parachute, because back in them days, they didn't have tandem parachutes. You just jumped out of the plane. I've ridden a camel and an elephant. I saw the Eiffel Tower and the London Bridge when it was still in London. I visited the Louvre, saw the Mona Lisa. She's much smaller in real life than all the pictures that you see of her. I fought a bull in Spain, saw the running of the bulls through the streets of Pamplona. I flew in a military aircraft with my feet in the air, kind of upside down, because the heaters were on top and the rest of the plane was freezing. And was able to visit the underground nuclear missile launch facility in Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow. Okay. Well, in addition to fiction, maybe you should be publishing your memoirs too, your nonfiction. That's great. You've done things many people might dream of enjoying. You were in the Air Force, you say.
Yes.
What about that part of your life?
I was the last class of the Women's Air Force, because it used to be the Men's Air Force and the Women's Air Force. But I was the last women's class before it integrated into just one Air Force in 1975. I was the first woman in the weapons storage area at my base in North Carolina. I was the first female Squadron Airman of the Month, the Squadron Airman of the Quarter. I was the first woman to shoot marksman with the M16 rifle, and I was the first and only woman to shoot a hole through the roof of the weapons storage area, and that's all I'm going to say about that. I was also the first in my immediate family to get saved, and now all but 2 claiming the Lord, and I am still praying for those 2.
Well, excellent. Congratulations. Well, ordinarily I would ask, do you have time for hobbies? I don't know if that's a fair question considering all your regular activities, but do you do hobbies, Colleen?
My desk sits so that I look out my window when I'm not actually studying my keyboard to know what keys I'm supposed to be hitting. So I do a lot of bird watching, and I've seen a bald eagle in my neighbor's yard. There was a roadrunner in our yard, and it was like freaky because we don't have roadrunners around here. We've got hummingbirds and dove and quail and wrens and finches and hawks and woodpeckers, but don't tell my sister because she's very protective of her wood siding. I've seen murmurations of starlings and murders of crows. There's been buzzards on the back fence waiting for lunch, and it's a bird sanctuary out here. So it's very fun to take a break from pounding the keyboard and reversing and re-editing and editing to just look outside and watch the birds flying. In the house, I collect dragons, glass and pewter and ceramic kinds of things. I'd like to have a real dragon, but that doesn't seem to be in the works there. I bake, I cook. I'm kind of a chopped chef, excuse me. I find what's in the pantry and the fridge, and I whip up something together at the last hour. We do 1,000-piece puzzles, jigsaw puzzles out here. We've got one in progress at all times, and we play skip bow with my mom. It's a card game that my mother does love, her skip bow. We try and sneak in some other games, but we always come back to skip bow.
That's colorful. That's great. Incidentally, we do have lots of roadrunners in Texas. So
yeah. Must have been lost then, because we don't.
Yeah. Made a wrong turn in Arizona or something.
Somewhere. Yes.
Well, lots of hobbies, that's for sure. With all those activities, why do you write, Colleen?
I breathe, therefore I write. I made an agreement with the Lord that if He would give me the ability, I would write, and only for Him, because I was writing a lot for myself. And He and I came to a place where He said, you either write for me or you don't write. I had to surrender that. And I said, all right, if you will give me the material, I will write, and I will write only for you. And in everything that I do, I contain a gospel message. It doesn't look like the Roman road or the four spiritual laws, if anybody still knows what those two things are, but it will contain the cross, the blood, and the need for a Savior. He's given me the material, and I have put the gospel message in everything I write.
Wow, with all that commitment, Colleen, do you have a life verse?
It's kind of a weird one, but it's Habakkuk 3:17 and 18. And I condense it down to, though everything goes wrong around me, yet I will rejoice in God my Savior.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners at this point?
Quoting Doctor Who, we're all stories in the end. Let's make it a good one. We all have stories to tell. You don't have to be an author to be a writer. Write the story the Lord gives you. Everyone has a story. Someone needs to hear your story, even if it's just you. So write your story.
Thank you, Colleen. It's been a pleasure interviewing you, and lots of fun too. I've learned lots hearing just listening. I'll turn the microphone over to Anne Green. Closing remarks.
Well, it was lovely, lovely talking with you, Colleen.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed this.
Yeah. And listeners, you can find both of Colleen's series, the Collin Walker Series and the Knights of the Octagon Series, on Amazon. And that's about all the time we have today. So please plan to join us next time when we three authors discuss my detective book, Red is for Rookie. This is Holly Garden's first case, and the action is so dangerous it almost becomes Holly's last case. You won't want to miss our next podcast. So join us here at Spotify and other places where you enjoy your podcast. We're so glad you joined us, and we'd love to hear from you. We look forward to your input about our podcast, and we'll listen to your suggestions of authors you'd like to hear from. You can email us at we'vegotbooks33@gmail.com. You can find all the books we mention on Amazon.com. Type the author's name and the book they've discussed in the search bar. I'm Anne Green, and for Colleen and Jim and Lana, goodbye until we meet again, and read a good book.